Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be a true crime video. We're going to be talking about some of the most terrifying true crime cases that I have researched ever. These are super scary, and I think that one common denominator as to why these cases are so scary to me is because they are perpetrated by someone that the victim was close to, someone that they trusted. We can all agree that that is a pretty terrifying concept. To think that someone that you trust can do something so terrible, really scary. So let's get into the true crime cases. So the first case we're going to be talking about is about a woman named Lynette. So Lynette Quast was born on December 16th of 1962 in Whitewater, Wisconsin. She was born to a very devout Christian family, and when Lynette was in high school, she met Thomas, aka Tom Kraft, and they fell in love. According to everyone who knew them, they were super driven, intelligent, and very much in love. Everyone assumed that Tom and Lynette would succeed in many ways, but specifically as a couple. Everyone around them thought they were a great couple who would be together forever. Lynette studied nursing in college, and Tom took mechanical engineering classes. The two high school sweethearts married when they were 21 years old. Tom was actually offered a job in Ohio, and they ended up leaving Lynette's close-knit friends and family behind. As I said before, their relationship was really good and everything seemed solid until they had their first child. That was when things became really strained for Tom and Lynette. Really weird to say Tom and Lynette and not be talking about Desperate Housewives, I must say. Tom and Lynette became very low on money, and apparently Lynette's spending was quote-unquote out of control. Lynette always had lifelong friends who she kept in touch with very frequently by calling them. However, as the marriage got worse, her friends heard less and less from her. Lynette's close friends and families began to hear stories from Lynette about emotional, physical, and sexual abuse from Tom. Tom told his friends that Lynette was crazy and that he had to have her admitted because she chased him with a knife, but that never happened. Tom and Lynette's neighbors began to become very concerned. They noticed that Lynette went from being a super friendly neighbor to being quite standoffish and sad. So Lynette's brother was getting married, and Lynette was talking to him on the phone saying how Tom did not want her to come to the wedding. She was still planning on leaving him to go to the wedding. When Lynette never made it to her parents' house that weekend, they became extremely worried. Lynette's father ended up showing up at Tom and Lynette's home, and when he noticed a cut on Tom's hand, he decided to report Lynette as missing. It only took the police a matter of hours to find out what happened to Lynette. A McDonald's worker contacted the police after finding a garbage bag filled with body parts. And later at a rest stop, the police discovered Lynette's identification with human thighs. Her head was later found in a landfill, which is just so terrible and disgusting. Tom actually told the police that Lynette committed suicide, and because she was a strong Catholic and it was really against her beliefs, he wanted to hide it from her family, so he dismembered her body and hid it. Lynette's 8-year-old son told the investigators that he saw his dad watching a video of how to dismember a body before Lynette died. Tom was arrested and charged with voluntary manslaughter, and he only served 12 years in prison. He was released after 2011. So disgusting. Like, I cannot believe that this man is clearly guilty. He clearly murdered his wife, and 12 years in prison, that's it? Insane. Tom's prison roommate actually described to investigators that when he questioned his cellmate as to how he could dismember his own wife, Tom only looked up at him and smiled. Sick. Very disgusting human being. Terrifying that he's just out and about since 2011. That is not fun. I hope that Lynette's family and Lynette's son can have peace, and I just hope that they get justice in some other way, because that is disturbing. Next case that we're going to be talking about has to do with Dorothy Marie Roberts. Dorothy Marie Roberts was better known as Marie Roberts, and she was from Fort Worth, Texas, and she loved her mother very much. They had a very close relationship. When she was 4 years old, her parents got a divorce, and she continued living with her mom. She was quite happy with the way things were. Her mom ended up remarrying a man named Frank. Marie and her mother's relationship became very strained when she was 16 years old, and she came home from school and saw Frank with another woman. And then she demanded her mom should leave him, obviously, because he was cheating on her, and she didn't want to leave him. So this really strained the relationship between Marie and her mother. Marie became very standoffish, understandably, with Frank, and she even threatened to leave the house multiple times and go live with her father if they didn't get divorced. But Frank and Marie's mother, Beth, decided to stay together. So Marie ended up moving in full-time with her father, Stephen Roberts. Stephen Roberts was actually very excited to have his daughter move in with him full-time. He worked really hard to be a good dad. He was even learning different skills on how to like take care of a teenager. Obviously that's kind of a learning curve to take in a teenager who's already 16 years old. He really wanted to be a good father to her. He was excited for his daughter to live with him full-time. Marie, however, missed her mom a lot. So she ended up showing up at her mom's house and begged to move back in, but Frank made it clear before she left that if she were to leave, she would not be able to come back. And Frank and her mom both stuck to that rule. Marie did something so terrible next. She stole barium acetate from her chemistry class and laced her father's refried beans on taco night to the point where it murdered him. He passed away the next day. Marie could go live back with her mother, and that is what happened. She ended up moving in with her mom, but Marie got her wish to an even fuller extent because at her dad's funeral, her mom told her that she was planning on leaving Frank and moving her and Marie to Florida. Almost a year later, Marie was actually studying Hamlet with one of her best friends, Stacy High, and the subject got her so distressed about what she had done that she ended up confessing her crime to Stacy. Stacy went weeks debating what to do with this information and ended up telling the school guidance counselor, who contacted authorities. After reinvestigating, authorities found the poison. Marie was a freshman at the time at the University of Texas. She was convicted of her father's 1993 murder, and she was sentenced to 27 years in prison in 1995 and was paroled in 2003, and she is now believed to be living under a new identity. That is just so crazy. She claimed that she didn't mean to kill him and that she just meant to, you know, make him feel sick so that she would have to go live with her mom. But like, what planet do you live on that you would do that? You know, she was 16 years old. She was sentenced to 27 years in prison. How the hell are we going to talk about how Tom was a full adult when he murdered his wife, brutally murdered his wife, and was only sentenced to 12 years? That's just insane. Obviously, the crimes was still terrible as well. I just thought all of these would have life in prison, but either way, it's really, really sad. It makes me feel so sad for her dad that he was so excited. Like, he didn't even do anything wrong to Marie. Their relationship was fine, and that was the most annoying part about the whole thing, is like, why would you take that out on your dad when he just did nothing but welcome you with open arms? Like, it was just such a weird story that really, really messed with my head. I just couldn't understand, and yeah, it was really, really scary. All right, so the next true crime case we're going to be talking about is probably one of the cases that I've read, and from start to finish it just kept going in a different direction than I expected it to. It was just so crazy, and the details of it all were so strange and confusing and twisted that I wanted to talk about it because it was so just terrifying. John and Cheryl Trover appeared to have a super happy marriage. Perfect even. They raised 3 children together, including John's daughter from his first marriage, and they were pretty popular in their small town of Gillette, Wyoming. Cheryl was a high school math teacher who was loved by her students. Things seemed really good and happy until they began to take a dark turn in 1998. So John ended up receiving very threatening calls to his work that were very, very terrifying and were absolutely freaking him out, but they lasted for months. I want you to remember that for later on. The night of December 4th of 1998, Cheryl Trover was found in the woods on the outskirts of town. She was naked and beaten, and the family's car had like a trunk bed, and the trunk bed was set on fire. Back at Cheryl and John's home, 2 of the children were tied up. I guess one of them was not in the house at the time, and John was stabbed to death. Cheryl told the police that an intruder had came in and beat her and assaulted her, tied her children up, and killed John. But the police were immediately suspicious. The first thing that investigators noticed was that Cheryl was only injured on parts of her body that she could reach. And that was where her story began to fall apart. Her 2 children admitted that even though she was wearing a ski mask, they knew that it was their mother who was the intruder the whole time. They were only 11 and 13 at the time, and they thought their mom was playing some sort of weird game. They weren't really sure what was going on until things got worse. Investigators actually discovered that it was Cheryl who was making the the threatening phone calls to John's office for the past few months. It was also discovered that Cheryl was having an affair with the school's principal that she works at, John Riley. Her and John Riley were seeing each other for 4 years, which is a very long time to be having an affair, obviously. But she waited until John was out of town and she took one of his guns and dressed up as a robber. She shot her husband John, but he didn't die right away, and it was pretty much like a fight to the death at that point. But sadly, Cheryl ended up killing John by stabbing him multiple times. Once the investigators figured out the truth, Cheryl committed suicide rather than facing the police, which I can only imagine is so frustrating, not only for obviously like the law enforcement, but for the family and for those poor kids that had to experience this whole thing and lose their dad. Their mom leaves them alone just for them to pick up the pieces themselves. It is so horrible and just such a terrifying story, again, of someone that you expect to trust. This is your wife, this is their mother, is just one of the most terrifying things ever. And I'm sure it's very frustrating for the family, and the friends of these people will never get justice or even just understand why she did that. There's no explanation. It's just like a loose-ended story that, you know, these kids have to grow up with now. But that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and let me know in the comments below if there's any other true crime cases that you guys would like me to cover. I think it's super important, informative, and interesting to talk about true crime. I really like talking about unsolved mysteries for the most part because obviously we can help them get solved. If you guys have any, let me know below. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week. And I will see you guys later. Bye!